Hey everybody, welcome to Takeoff with John Clark. We are presented by Makefield Putters. Great new sponsor. Thank you very much. And let's welcome in a legend. 30 years at ESPN. Happy 30th anniversary, Sal Paolantonio. Good to see you.
Oh, and I got all that gray hair to prove it, John Clark.
Al, incredible career you've had, and congrats. 23 years and counting with the matchup show. We can watch it on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus, any other ESPNs, Saturday and Sunday?
You know, and I'm so blessed to be with two great co-hosts, Darius Butler and Greg Cosell, who we like to call the founding father of the show. He was there when it all started.
Well, we look forward to the matchups this week. Of course, Eagles and Chiefs. I mean, my goodness, the Eagles are going to be the matchup of the week a lot of times. And a big move by Howie Roseman this week, Sal. Once again, he's making moves. He gets Tank Bigsby. So I want to ask you, what do you think this is more about with Tank? The injury to Will Shipley, something about A.J. Dillon, not wanting to run Saquon as much as last year, or the new kickoff return rules that it opened things up the first week?
Yeah, you could pick any one of those, but I think the biggest thing probably is the injury to Will Shipley. They want to have that insurance. I think Shipley's been pretty impressive, John. I've liked what I've seen of him. He attacks the line of scrimmage, holds on to the football, a nice change of pace from Saquon. You know, I believe that Saquon is now focused on getting back to the Super Bowl and putting together a Hall of Fame career resume. And I don't think that Saquon wants to be held back in any way, shape, or form. One. Two, I believe what Nick Sirianni says. I think he is not sugarcoating things. He's definitely not doing one thing behind the scenes and one thing publicly. I think he really wants to win games however he can. So if it calls for Jalen Hurts to run the ball like they did in the opening game against the Cowboys, if it calls for Saquon Barkley, if it calls for A.J. Brown, whatever you got to do, find a way to win. And if that means that Saquon's got to carry it 28, 30 times, okay.
Now, this matchup against the Chiefs, Jalen Hurts, he's actually had some pretty good success against Steve Spagnuolo's defense. Super Bowls, both of them. They won on the road 2 seasons ago in Kansas City, so they're going for their 3rd straight win over the Chiefs. What do you think they will do offensively this week to win in Kansas City?
Well, let's look at why they've had success against Steve Spagnuolo's defense. And oh, by the way, John, pretty much every defense in the NFL in the last 3 years, give or take a few games here or there, I think the one defensive coordinator in the league who's had Jalen Hurts' number is Todd Bowles in Tampa. But Spagnuolo in the Super Bowl tried to stop Saquon and did a pretty good job of that. Problem is, the Eagles offense has so many different ways to beat you. So many different options. As we like to say in the neighborhood, options don't discriminate. And Jalen Hurts has been very good, getting better and better and better. I think the watershed moment was against Baltimore at M&T Bank Stadium. Better and better at recognizing pre-snap and then post-snap what to do with the football, giving the answers to the blitz more and more, able to distribute the ball, knows when to keep it, call his own number. That power quarterback run that he's got is second to none in the National Football League. John, you look at the other teams in the NFL week 1, the thing that separates the Eagles from every other team, and I'm saying all 31, pretty much, is the play of their offensive line. Nobody has Mailata and Johnson, the twin bookends like that. Then you put in Mr. Nasty himself, Landon Dickerson, and no-nonce Cam Jurgens, and you could basically plug in and play guys at right guard, which they've been able to do. 4 out of your 5 offensive linemen are Pro Bowlers. And they're big. They're bigger than any other offensive line in the National Football League. So look at last night, Monday Night Football, Chicago and Detroit. Chicago and, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Neither one of those offensive lines really controlled the line of scrimmage for much of the game. It was very haphazard. The Eagles, when they want to, and decide to can control the line of scrimmage. And that changes the equation for everything.
And these last two games that the Eagles have played, you mentioned the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Saquon only had 57 rushing yards on 25 carries. The Chiefs really bottled him up, but you mentioned what Jalen Hurts did. Then against the Cowboys, Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher. Saquon had 60 rushing yards. So we've seen the last two games, teams really trying to slow down Saquon. But are we seeing that Jalen Hurts says to himself, okay, you're slowing him down, but remember, I can run. I can do these things too. So is Jalen Hurts really the difference? Saquon, of course, sets the tone with the running game, but is Jalen Hurts the difference in some of these things?
Well, I don't know how we would define the difference. I think in tandem, as a dual threat, you have the dual threat of Barkley and Jalen, and then you have Jalen now as a dual threat within himself, able to throw his way out of trouble and run out of trouble. And what's interesting to me is, post-game and for the last couple of days, there's been a lot made of the fact that A.J. Brown had no targets till the fourth quarter and only one target and one catch in the football game. Yet the Eagles still won. So in preparation for this podcast, I looked up some numbers. So Puka Nacua had 130 yards receiving on Sunday. He led the NFL in receiving yards. The Rams only scored 14 points against Houston. You look at Joe Flacco in Cleveland. He had 290 yards passing against the Bengals, lost the game. So to me right now, we have a running back revolution in the National Football League, John. And you look at like a team like the Broncos. The Broncos had 30 carries against Tennessee, won the game. Indianapolis had 40 rushing attempts against Miami, steamrolled them. Jacksonville, 32 rushing attempts for 200 yards, destroyed Carolina. The 5 teams that had over 500 rushing attempts last season all went to the playoffs. Eagles, of course, led the league in that, and they won the Super Bowl. You take the size and power of that offensive line, the dual threat of Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley running the football, it's a 1-2 punch. And then when Jalen wants to throw it, if you come in too much, it's that dagger route to Devontae Smith, like in the Super Bowl. Just call it, John.
Absolutely.
Where's that T-shirt, by the way, John? I want the NBC Sports logo and then just call it right here.
By the way, last night, the Phillies game, Sal, it was "That's my ball" because of the Phillies woman down in Miami, of course. That's the new slogan in the city of Philadelphia this week. That's my ball. But it's fascinating to me, Sal, because we saw what the Eagles were able to put together last year. Very similar to Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Like you said, a running back revolution. And we all know the formula, running Saquon like they did, Jalen Hurts efficient in the passing game, and don't turn it over. So why is it we hear Sports Talk Radio this week, people are still nitpicking here and there about Jalen Hurts? Can he throw the ball? He was efficient, didn't turn it over, didn't make the big mistake. This is the formula. Why are people still, we need more?
Well, you know, the Eagles have been pretty perfect, so you got to pick out something to talk about. I mean, and I know people accuse me of being a homer. I'm not an Eagles fan. I grew up in New York. I like the team. I like the way it's coached. I like the way the quarterback plays. I like the way the quarterback acts on and off the field. I think there's a level of professionalism that's inspirational for young people. So I think all of the right things that are being done by this football team, put it all together, and they are really an interesting, fascinating team. So you look at I like to put the NFL season in 8-year chunks. So in the last 16 Super Bowl appearances in 8 years, 16 appearances, only 7 teams have gotten in, John. 7 teams have been in the last 16 Super Bowl appearances. I mean, 25 are out. And the Eagles have been in 3 times, won twice. So I think we're parallel tracks right now. Big picture, we're looking at Eagles-Chiefs dynasty neck and neck. And, I could see this team qualifying for the Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley for at least the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Hey, I'm John Clark, and we are here in Bensalem, PA at Makefield Putters. And I got to tell you, we want to thank them for being our new sponsors of the Takeoff podcast. And I've got putting issues when I get out there. I'm 6'5", and I had to get a custom putter. When I got this custom putter here, it changed my putting game. You know, when it's wintertime and we go get jackets, different size people need different size jackets. Well, we got to get a custom putter for our size, our type of swing and everything. They break it all down for you. They build up the putter from scratch. They have all the data, the analytics, the statistics to get you to be a good putter. And when I came here to Makefield Putters and I started to use my custom putter, I gotta tell you, I make it with Makefield. So next time you're on the course with Makefield Putters, go birdies. Yeah, Chris Collinsworth said the same thing on my podcast last week. He was talking about dynasty, but you still have the Chiefs, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Andy Reid. Now, this matchup against the Eagles, I'm thinking like, hey, if I'm a bettor, if I'm a gambler, I'm putting the money on the Chiefs. Originally, they were favorites, but now they got those injuries. They're going to be without two of their top receivers, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice. So what do you think about this actual matchup? The Eagles have shown they can go into Kansas City 2 seasons ago and win. What do you think about this matchup? You think the Eagles pull this out?
Well, this matchup is interesting because of the injuries to the wide receivers, right? So the weakness on this Eagles team, and it is a weakness, is the secondary. They haven't figured it out yet. They've had months to figure it out, and they just haven't put together the pieces to the puzzle. That left cornerback position, as everybody knows who watched the game, we don't have to name names here, is still a major work in progress. The safety position opposite Reed Blankenship they're still trying to figure out what they want to do there. So as they proved, as Dak and CeeDee Lamb proved, you can throw on the Eagles. If CeeDee Lamb catches those 2 footballs in the fourth quarter, you and I are having a different conversation. Jalen Carter is in a different position than he is right now because Jalen Hurts basically saved his bacon on Thursday night, right? And if I'm Jalen Carter, I'm walking across the locker room and saying, hey, cuz, what kind of check you need me to sign for your favorite charity? Because you really saved me because I was in the spotlight and you took the spotlight away by winning the game. So you can throw on the Eagles, but I don't anticipate the Chiefs being able to do that. I think what you're seeing from the defense right now, it's become linebacker-centric. But if Carter had been on the field Thursday night, that game would not have been close. Because Carter demands the double team. He's the most double-team defensive tackle in the league last year, John. And he single-handedly won the game in the fourth quarter against the Rams in the divisional round. He was the reason why they were able to torment Washington in the NFC Championship game. And as anybody's watched the highlights of Super Bowl 59, and I have over and over, and then gone and watched the film of the Eagles defense, Jalen Carter is the straw that stirs the drink. You must double team him. That allows those edge rushers to come in. So to me, if he had been on the field, it would have been a different story.
Yeah, you make a great point, of course. And when you look at the defense, you didn't actually mention him, Adoree Jackson. Vic Fangio says he's most likely going to start. He's the starter for now. And Vic Fangio going into the season said eventually he thinks Jacorian Bennett will be playing. Well, that would mean maybe Jacorian Bennett at some point here when he really gets the defense down. You mentioned Drew Makuba across from Reed Blankenship. And then Howie Roseman, of course, making some moves. He's bringing in an extra pass rusher, Darius Smith. So do you think that we are seeing the players that are going to be in their positions, 2 months from now? Or are they experimenting with a lot of different things and they will settle on something?
Yeah, I think they're experimenting. I don't think they'll settle. This team is not in a position to settle right now. My view is you have the pieces in place to win the NFC again. They have been very successful against the Packers. Adding Micah Parsons is great if you're playing the Lions and you're playing Jared Goff, who is not a mobile quarterback and doesn't have Saquon and doesn't have a new offensive scheme. So the Eagles have had the Packers number, and I mean, that Monday night game in Lambeau is going to be a great game. Don't get me wrong. That's going to be
Especially the tush push factor there with the Packers trying to get that out.
absolutely tush push. By the way, how about Sean McDermott running the tush push
Yeah.
after pushing to get it banned? What
They
was that?
shouldn't be allowed to run it if they voted against it, right?
No, come on. Yeah. You know what they call that, John? Hypocritical. That's what they call it.
True.
But I think they are experimenting is kind of like a pejorative term. I would say they're trying to figure out what works for sure. I don't think it's an experimental stage. I think they've done their homework. They see what they have. I think you have to be honest with yourself. And this is the great thing about this regime of the Eagles. They are honest with themselves. They know what works and what doesn't work. And I don't think they're going to settle. I don't think they're going to settle at all. They know what's at stake and they know what they have in this quarterback. And that demands your constant attention, tinkering here or there, bringing in players, making sure if you have an injury that you've got somebody who can come in and change the equation like they have been able to do. The one thing I agree with Fangio, don't put Cooper DeJean isolated at left corner. He is, in my view, in his second year in the NFL, the best slot corner in the NFL. He is. And they didn't utilize him properly, I thought. What for me to say, it's Vic Fangio. He just won the Super Bowl. I don't know nothing from nothing compared to him. But I watched back and watched the defense. Cooper DeJean was at times on CD Lamb and then shifted off of him, isolating Lamb on Adoree Jackson. That I thought it was a mistake. I thought wherever CD Lamb was on the field, Cooper DeJean should have been with him.
All right, so you mentioned it, the linebackers. We were talking in our office, when you put Jihaad Campbell, his athleticism next to Zack Baun, a guy who completely became a new player under Vic Fangio. Vic saw something. Great credit to Vic on that. When is the last time the Eagles had two linebackers like this? I mean, we were talking maybe Jeremiah Trotter and Carlos Emmons, guys like that, but I mean, the athleticism that these guys have and the coverage. I mean, Zack Baun and Jihaad Campbell are going down the field, knocking balls away. Incredible the way they're able to cover. So do you think that kind of even opens Vic Fangio's eyes even more about what he can do with these guys?
Yeah, and I love it. I know people in Philadelphia love it. It goes back to Seth Joyner, Bill Berge. I mean, this team has had great linebackers, Hall of Fame caliber linebacker, Byron Evans. I mean, you go back in the day, these guys could play and were difference makers, set the tone. But the difference between those guys, Berge and Evans and Joyner, who just wanted to decapitate you all the time, is that Campbell just seems like he's so fluid and quick, long arms and long legs, and the type of person that he is. He has a chance to be a special player in the National Football League. But Zack Baun is already there, John. He's already there. I watch him a lot on the field. I isolate myself just to watch him in the binoculars from the press box, or then I'll go back and watch him a little bit. Never out of place. So instinctive, so determined to make the play, and has been taught great lessons, punching the ball out, collecting the football when it's on the ground. He's a true leader.
Now, the big question for me going into this season was, will the Eagles have enough of a pass rush? And, losing Josh Sweat, you lost Milton Williams in the middle with that push. You lost Brandon Graham. And after watching the first game, now here it is. It's without Jalen Carter. So, like you said, the most double-team tackle in the NFL last year. So we saw what life would be like without Jalen Carter. Do you think they have enough of a pass rush this year to go back to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, we'll see, John. It's a big question. You got to have Jalen Carter on the field to see whether these guys can play, right? So we don't know because we didn't see them with Carter on the field. But clearly, the front office thinks they don't, or else they wouldn't have tried to get Micah Parsons, even make let's just call it what it is, a futile phone call to Jerry Jones that he would actually trade Micah Parsons within the division. It was dumb enough to trade him within a conference, but, really it would be malfeasance to trade him within the division for sure. So the fact that Howie's out there making calls and signing guys like Zadarius Smith says that it's not for me to judge. Follow their actions, follow the money. This is what they're doing. They're trying to bolster the pass rush because they didn't like what they saw, even with Jalen Carter off the field or with him coming back.
I tell you what, it leads me to the genius of Vic Fangio, though, because Sal, if you go back to last year, it really is incredible what he did with that defense. And you talk about recognizing what Zack Baun could do, putting Cooper DeJean in that nickel corner spot. So do you think after a couple weeks we will see that same Vic Fangio magic, that he will find the perfect stew, so to speak, of how to use all of the pieces that he has?
Yeah, you got to trust Vic Fangio. And you got to remember, as you said, it wasn't until after the bye last year where they really got it together defensively. But, they did a lot of things differently. As you mentioned, Cooper DeJean was injured before he was put in. Secondly, they extended the practices, practiced differently, practiced a lot tougher. That was all stuff that Fangio went to Sirianni and said, I want to do this, this, and this. Those options have already been exhausted. So, Brandon Graham's not walking through that door, John. That's Josh Sweat's not walking back through that door. These guys. But again, it's very, very difficult to make a judgment. We can make an evaluation of where they are right now. And I think people are in that building. That's why, Howie Roseman went 1-800-ERIC Burkhart. Let me get Zadarius Smith in here, right? Because he thought, he honestly understood that he needed more pass rush, even though he knew Jalen Carter was coming back. And, you got to have a guy like Smith who's very maneuverable, a nice little burst to him, good off the edge, good containment when you're playing a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Then you play, after that, Matthew Stafford, who's a little more statuesque in the pocket and is more susceptible to the rush up the middle. And that's where Ajomo and Davis and Carter will really do their damage like they did last year.
So this is kind of a big moment for Nick Sirianni with what Jalen Carter did, being the second spitter, the Seinfeld thing that happened. So do you think Nick Sirianni in his position as head coach should discipline Jalen Carter further, whether it's sitting him for a quarter, sitting him for a half, sitting him for a game against the Chiefs? What do you think he should do in this position?
Yeah, I'm not going to prejudge what Sirianni's going to do. I'm going to let him do it first, John. What I have said is I don't think Jalen Carter should be suspended. I think Jalen Carter needs education, not punishment. And I think those conversations with Jalen Carter have happened and will continue to happen. When I talked to Lane Johnson after the game on Thursday night on the field for SportsCenter, I specifically asked him whether the Players Advisory Council will talk to Jalen Carter and tell him what's at stake. And he said, yeah, we'll get involved in that. And he said it with the mic hot, and we put it on TV. So it's pretty clear that they understand as players. One, it's for the Eagles' own good. They need Jalen Carter on the field. The Eagles are not going back to the Super Bowl without Jalen Carter, John. Okay? They're not. You can say that too, right? So that's one. It's for the Eagles' own good. It's for Jalen Carter's own good. He was my pick to be the Defensive Player of the Year in 2025 because of the breakout postseason that he had. So if he's Defensive Player of the Year, a defensive tackle, you've seen the money some of these defensive linemen are getting. He's looking at $100 million. $100 million, John, is generational wealth for the Carter family. So he puts all of that in jeopardy. His legacy, his teammates, his money, his family's money, if he doesn't get his act together. And the Eagles need to help him understand that, not punish him. I don't think punishment does any good. I don't think.
And teams are seeing what happened, and they're saying, okay, we're going to find a way to get under his skin and
Yes.
and get a penalty. So
that happened on Thursday night.
exactly. Yeah.
It's like It's like that Star Wars scene. Was Greedo the first shooter or Han Solo? Who shot first? It's interesting to me that NBC took like 2 hours to find the video that Dak Prescott actually spit first.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had to wait for the lightning delay.
It was a wild scene, though, Sal. You had a lot going on. You had Ben Van Sumeren. I mean, he's out for the year on the first, kickoff, and then you have the spinning incident. Then you have a delay. That was one of the weirder and wackier season openers. Am I right?
Hey, I've covered over 1,000 sporting events, reported on them professionally. I've never seen anything like it.
Other than the power going out at the Superdome and the Super
Bowl. There's worse.
So, Sal, you mentioned the possibility of other teams in the NFC. Who do you think is the biggest threat to the Eagles in the NFC? You've got the Commanders in the division. You've seen the Packers. You're going to have the Vikings on the Eagles' schedule. You've got the Rams in the NFC.
I think it's the Packers. Look at the Packers. Yeah. Look at how good the schedule makers were for the Packers. We'll send a divisional opponent in, and then on a short week, we'll send in the team that was in the NFC Championship game on Thursday night. They have back-to-back home games. They're the Packers who lost to the Eagles twice, and the Eagles don't have back-to-back home games this year.
Yeah. Doesn't seem fair.
Look at I would implore your viewers, when you're done watching this, to look at the Packers' schedule and look how much easier it is than the Eagles. And the Packers went to the playoffs last year, John, when they were 1-5 in their division. They got swept by Detroit, got swept by the Vikings.
And none of those teams won a playoff game. Crazy in that division.
So they have a much easier schedule. I think they flipped the script on their division. And I think they're looking at, 12, 13 wins they're because of their schedule.
The Packers.
The Packers, yeah.
Yeah. So then you're saying, okay, because I think the Eagles need to be at home again for an NFC title game to get back to the Super Bowl. So you're saying the Packers could have an opportunity to host an NFC title game maybe with that amount of wins. It's possible.
Don't put words in my mouth, John.
Sal says the headline. What about the Lions? You think they're any type of threat this year?
I don't.
No,
I think, that was a telling loss. I thought the Packers would beat them. I didn't think they would beat them that bad. You lose your coordinators like that. Goff doesn't fit the profile of what you want right now in an NFL quarterback. You don't want a guy who's a statue behind in the pocket like that. That's tough.
All right, how about the Commanders? Do you think that they could pose a real threat to the Eagles? They did last year. I mean, they were right there in the NFC title game until a couple turnovers. The game was close.
Yeah. The game was close. They will pose a threat. They will pose a threat for sure. They have an older defense. It's important to be lucky with injuries. The Eagles were second healthiest team in the league last year. They were very lucky with injuries. Commanders have a very old defense. One of the oldest in the NFL.
Yeah. Eagles are taking the opposite tack, the youngest, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, well, it is going to be fun, and we're going to look forward to Sal Pal breaking down the Eagles-Chiefs matchup on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus, all the ESPN, Saturday and Sunday morning. Congratulations on 23 years on NFL Matchup and 30 years, your 30th year anniversary at ESPN. It's a magnificent thing.
John, so great to be with you. Thank you.
The greatest. Oh, mom, so flagrant.